Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Molten Modular DIY. I have a couple of moments spare, so I've squeezed myself into my tiny DIY corner, which seems to be getting smaller all the time, and I'm going to have a go at the Veno-Echo. This is a module from Venus Instruments. I've not built anything from them before, so it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they put forward this idea. How good the manual is, how good the build is, how easy, how hard, the struggles, the pain, and the ecstasy of getting through another DIY build. That's what we're here for. That pure adrenaline rush of the slow soldering, getting to that point where nothing works. That's what we're after. That is the joy of the thing. So let's not waste any time. It's a fairly substantial module. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff going on here, so this could be interesting. So let's have a look, see what's in the box first of all. Front panel, I've already shown you that. That's looking pretty sweet. Nicely wrapped in paper. We have what I imagine is the main PCB. Seems to be a couple of sneaky things already on there. A little bit of surface mount, which are going to save us some bother. So, looking at this, actually looks more like a hardware, a front panel soldering exercise rather than a deep dive into lots of resistors and capacitors. I could be completely wrong, but that's what it's looking like at the moment. But maybe there's another board which has all that stuff on. Let's keep digging, shall we? Little packet of something. I guess this takes us to the user manual, but I have that already up on my little Surface Go here. What is in here, do we think? Probably some knurlies. Oh, all that beautiful wrapping, and I'm just making a right mess of it. Oh, no, just some regular screws. Regular screws, that's fine. I can find a home for them somewhere. We have a bag of not particularly impressive looking knobs. We have some bits of hardware. Switches and headers and LED. We have some patch sockets. Got some knobs, some potentiometers, and something in here. Something from Costa Rica. Oh, that's exciting. Better have a look. It's not obvious. Okay, this is presumably the board that does all the stuff, all the things. So it looks like that is all complete as a unit. So this must be the thing on which the thing runs. And so essentially what we're looking at with this is just really the front panel stuff. So this shouldn't be a complex build. It should be relatively straightforward. Good thing to get you started with, and will end up being a pretty decent sized, interesting module. I don't know a whole lot about the Veno-Echo yet. I have spoken of it before, and I understand it to be quite an interesting delay module, so I'm looking forward to using this because I love a good delay. I really do. And this has got different sorts of feedback you can play with, cross fading between stuff, and a lot of modulation control over various bits. Oh, let's check in on the manual. Introduction, thank you for purchasing the kit. That's good. It's always good to hear. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate being thanked for my purchase as opposed to being congratulated. But that's just me. So the parts list is, do we have a front panel? Yes, we do. We have two PCBs. No, we don't. We have a PCB with surface mount pre-soldered. Yes, we do. We have some shrouded bits. 5x2 shrouded header for power. Yes. 5x2 times 4. It gets a bit complicated with all of those bits, but 4 of those. Yes. I'm going to put these in a pile So power thing, yes. 4 of those things, yes. I've got some buttons, some switches and 2 LEDs. 14 of those, I'm going to assume that's okay. Some jacks, some knurlies. 8 D shaft. 1, 2, 3, 4. And some switches, yes. LEDs, yes. Buttons, yes. Daisy daughter board, that's what this is. Let me see if I can actually see it, if I can find my magnifiers. Yeah, daisy patch. These have, I think Daisy have, Electrosmith has single-handedly revolutionised the Eurorack industry. I have to say, they've done extraordinary work. Although, less for your keen solderer to actually do. But I really like the graphical representation that Venus Instruments are giving us here. We can see what it is. We can see what it is supposed to be in the kit accurately. There's no mystery to it. There's no uncertainty. It's all perfectly laid out, which is great. So, follow the order of assembly. Prepare the PCB. It's a PCB. I'm going to prepare it. Are you prepared? Are you ready? I think he's prepared now. Oh, I'm supposed to use a lint-free cloth. And some alcohol. Heck, to wipe down the pads. What? Okay, I mean, that's a good thing to do. I would say, celebrate the idea that you should clean your PCB first in order to get good soldering action going on. I'm unlikely to do that. I don't have these things to hand. I'm just going to crack on with the soldering because I just like to live on the edge, a bit like that. I don't mind my joints a bit dirty and grimy around the edges. Solder the power sockets. That's going to be first, is it? And then the daisy sockets, right? Then the jacks. Then the pots, then the switches, then the LEDs, front panel. Cool, okay. So straightforward, I think, is the name of the game here. So let's start with the power socket, which is this fella. Put everything else out of the way. Turn on the soldering iron. So we have this, the header, the power header for the Eurorack power supply. Now we're going to need to get our PCB around the right way. So it seems to be here. There's the red stripe. There's the nick on our power thing there, which is what the power cable goes into. Need to make sure that's the right way around. So that is going to go there. It says solder it now. I wonder whether putting these in and then turning it all over at once is going to be easier. Because if I turn that over, I can solder it, but it's not going to be very flat. But that's not a problem necessarily. I just wonder whether I can do all of those in one hit. Let's give that a go. These don't seem to have any orientation. They're just 5 by 2. So these also go into the back side. You can see where the screen print is. That's where you should be inserting them. So that should be there. There. Now this all depends on whether I can turn the thing upside down. And also whether these are going to be relatively of the same height. So that all works. So, am I turning it over then? That's the question. I've usually got a thing that I use to turn it over. Where has my thing gone? Found it. It's just a piece of plastic that I can put over the top like that. Hold it nice and tight. Turn it over. And then I can solder all of these bits. I could even take this out potentially. So I don't accidentally melt things. So that's there. I reckon I can solder that whole lot without any bother. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just making sure I'm not doing anything silly. Power socket, yeah. Do the pin sockets, 4 of them. Yeah, that all looks good. On the back, yeah. This is the front, yeah. Okay, all good. So I'm just going to solder straight into this. Let's do the first couple of bits together and see how long it's going to take me. So what I need is my safety specs in case solder spits into my face. Always worth it. Put on a bit of air, blow away the badness, get a bit of solder. Always have a clean workspace. Always have a clean workspace. Nothing getting in the way. That's always good. Right, so I'll do the power thing first, as that's nearest to me here. Just going to heat a pad and the leg. Going to give it a bit of solder. Pause for a moment. That seems to be good on there. I'm going to do the opposite corner. Seems to be good. I'm going to do one corner on each, in fact. And then give it a look to make sure that's all lining up nicely. So I've got a little bit of each of those in. They all look relatively flat. That's good. Right, let's just do all the rest. That all looks pretty good to me. We are off to a cracking start. A cracking start, I say. So that's the daisy sockets. Insert the jacks. Insert the 14 jack sockets into the front side. Note that the adjacent ground pins on top and bottom rows share a through hole pad. Don't solder. Place a jack washer over the thread of each jack. Washer. Okay. So for this, we're going this way up. Those are pots. So we're looking at this bit down here, this row of stuff here. As you can see, there's a hole in between, and that gets shared with this twangy leg. This twangy leg goes in from the bottom end. You kind of stick that in first, push against it to get that in. He says, completely failing to then get it in. And then this goes the other side and shares that hole. Do you see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Shares that hole. Which is not as easy as it sounds. One there. You sort of got to I'm bending that in a little bit just to give me the room. Get that in. So yeah, I'm finding if I push that bottom one in and then give it a bit of a squeeze, that lets this other leg go in a bit easier as it pushes up against it. That seems to be the way. Okay, those are all in. It says that don't solder them, but put a washer over each of them. So it came with all these bits and pieces, so it's not the screw thing, it's the flat washer. So presumably this is in order to achieve height against the back of the front panel. Okay, they've all got washers. Now we insert the pots. And also don't solder these. Now obviously we've got to be careful that we don't pop out any of our jack sockets. Now these all the same. 10k, 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 Okay, yes, I believe they are. So rotate each of the pots so that the flat side of the housing is parallel to the top edge of the PCB. Ensure that the center is at 12 o'clock. Place a washer over the top. So, I mean, you can see that these are all in the same orientation with the three prongs there and the two sort of stabilizer prongs on the other side. So they're all going to go in the same way. How easily is a whole other question. Put the 3 bits in first, I find, and then see if you can squeeze the other 2 bits in. Well, I say that, but maybe it needs a little bit of... How are we going to get that to work into there? Okay, got that one in. Bit of wiggling required. Perhaps put a little bit of something onto the sides just to squeeze them in. Oh, that one's much easier. So yeah, give them a little squash. Oh, you don't want to see that though. That's no good at all. Okay, they're all in. They also need a washer. And this bit about rotate each of the pots so that the flat side of the housing is parallel to the top edge of the PCB. This will ensure that the center of the knob is at 12 o'clock. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what they mean. I mean, they can't go in any other way round. So the housing is evidently parallel to there. How else can they be? They can't be any other way, unless they mean this D part of this knob. But that's... I don't know, slightly odd, that. Anyway, I'm going to put a washer over the top as instructed. Okay, that's done. So none of this is soldered yet. It's all just being held in place. We're probably going to put the front panel on in order to ensure that everything is good. Everything is aligned properly. Insert the two-way miniature toggle switch. Two-way mini, is that this, do we think? In the front side. Left location labelled sync toggle. That's over here. Now this doesn't seem to have any particular orientation, so I'm just going to stick that in there. Those are going to wobble like crazy. And the other one is filter toggle, which is down here. So it's in the middle. Oh no, that's only a two-way. Okay, so we've got a two-way and a three-way. So this is a two-way because you've got it only switches into 2 positions. This one. And the two-way one needs to be in sync toggle, which is there. And the three-way one, 1, 2, 3, needs to be in filter toggle, which is this side. So that's good. Make sure you get that right, otherwise we're in all sorts of trouble. So that's very important. Two-way and sync toggle, three-way on filter toggle. Still don't solder. The whole thing's going to fall apart in a moment. So two LEDs. Long leg, usually positive, should be inserted into the anode pad, which I think is the positive side, which is labelled A. So LEDs. They seem to be up here. I think that's right. So it says long leg on A. Slightly odd. You'd usually expect there to be a flat side of a diode. So, okay, that's a little bit different. But, hey, they say long leg, get this right, long leg should be inserted into A. So just do that. Do what they say. Don't try to overthink it. Long leg into A. Like so. Insert the switches. So red and white, it says. Insert the red and 2 white tactile switches. How do I now tell them apart? The red switch goes into the middle and the white one's going left to right. No, locating pin, don't solder yet. Okay, so we're going to have to work out what this is. I'm a bit worried about everything poking out, so I'm going to sort of set it on there. The LEDs are going to push up whatever I do. So let's try to work out which of these is red and which is white, because they look very, very similar at this point. Now that does have a red dot on it, but that doesn't. That has a red sort of line on it. Oh, that has a red line too. So got those two have a red line. That has a red dot. Now that would suggest something, but let's have a look at the documentation to see whether it tells me anything. So the red one, it says, is 15 back up here. 15. Red indicator, locating pin, is the red one. So yes, that's right. And the other two are not. So the one with that switches, front panel switches. So this one here with a little red dot on it, that's the red one. And that goes in the middle, which is the tap. Okay. Now we've got to know which way round it's going to go. The locating pin must be pressed into the square hole. There is no square hole. That's depressing. Okay. Okay, it's not square hole. Right, the locating pin must be pressed into the spare hole. The spare hole? To ensure the correct orientation. Spare hole? I mean, it can only go one way round because it can't go this way round because it's not going to go through the PCB. So it has to be in this orientation. But which way up is it? Let's go back and see whether it tells us. Locating pin. Oh. What? Oh, I see. Right. Okay. So as I understand it, there's a tiny weeny little thing. See that? Pushing out there. Now that has to go into the 7th hole, if you know what I mean. So you've got 2 rows of 3 holes, and then you've got a 7th to the side. So that has to go into that extra hole. Got it? So this thing here is going to the left as I'm looking at it. So I'm looking at it here, into the tap thing here. There's the spare hole. Okay. So with the white ones, got the same. Can you see that? On this side. See that same little lug sticking out? So that can go on one side to the left. And this one goes the same. So we have all of these bits in. All of it is in. Remarkably, all a little bit wobbly in places. Now we need to carefully place the front panel over the components. Press down so that the threads of all the pots are through their holes. Ensure the switches are free and actuated through their holes, and fully screw all the knurlies on. So you're saying we're not going to have to ever take the front panel off again? Is that what you're saying? We only have to do it the once. So we've just got to kind of wiggle it a bit so you can get all of those jacks in. I found that using a pair of tweezers just to push from inside usually helps, but these are sort of facing each other. Okay, getting there. Ah, there we go. So that's in, that's in, that's in. Those are all in. LEDs are not in yet. I'm not going to worry about those for the moment, because we'll need to turn it over for that. But before we do that, we're going to need to secure this. See, my my fear is that I don't want to put all of the I just don't want to put all the nuts on. If I put all the nuts on, it means I have to take them all off again if there's a problem with my soldering. So if any of these bits here, if any of these are not soldered correctly and I need to go and reflow the solder, I'm going to have to take the whole front panel off to do that. So I'm going to put on a couple of nuts because I don't trust my success of this. So let's put on a top corner one over here. I'm going to put on another one over here. I'm essentially going to do corners, I think, is the idea. Put on one of these. Now, of course, when you're putting on these ones, it's possible to pull it out into the front panel rather than pulling it down, rather than pulling the front panel down to it. Yeah? You agreeing out there, chickens? Chickens. Nobody here but us chickens. Yeah, no, they're having a panic over there because they thought I was going to put all the nuts on. You know, they know what they're doing. So with that should be enough to hold those all together. We know that if I solder this, everything is going to be all right. It's all going to be all right. The buttons are moving. These are all moving. They're poking through right. These are all poking through right. It's all looking pretty good. So I've put enough, I think, on there that I can now turn it upside down and solder everything, and it'll all be fine. It'll just all be fine. Spinning around on a bit of a knob, that's all right. I don't mind. That should be fine. So just checking. Says to solder the LEDs. To do that first, interestingly. I kind of feel I want to do that last. But hey, let's follow the instructions, right? So to do the LEDs, what you need to do is just make sure that they sit in those two holes. Got two nice, lovely little holes here that they go through. So all you got to do is sort of woggle them a little bit, and they should sit in them. That's exactly what they're designed to do. So we can solder those first to stop them rattling about. Just a little bit wobbly. Maybe there'll be a better way of me holding this in a minute. They look good. They're all the way through. Looking fine. I'm going to snip those. No, I've lost the snippers. So, did the LEDs. Solder the remaining pins. Ensure the toggle switches are pressed flat against the PCB when soldered. So those are the tricky ones. I don't know if you can see that those have dropped through. So I'm going to need to make sure that those are pushed up when they are soldered. So maybe I should look at doing those bits first. So I'm going to use a couple of bits of foam. Just sit that on it. Like so. So those are now pushed up through. And I'm going to solder one leg of each. Now I've got to be careful that your soldering iron doesn't lean against any of these other plastic bits and melt them. Be very wary of that. You'll usually smell it after it's happened, and it's also likely, so you know, don't beat yourself up about it, just be aware and try not to let it happen, because it could make things difficult. But often you smell it before there's any real danger, I would say. Okay, so I've done one little bit, because these don't have screw threads, they're just going to be held there. That looks flat to me, that looks flat. I'm going to finish those off and then actually just do the rest, because this sitting here feels quite steady. So I think I'm just going to do the lot. Don't melt the power. Good, those are in. So jacks, toggle switchy things, pots, and the job's a good one. That looks pretty done to me. Something is still rattling. Oh, that's the washers that are still there. It's not the cleanest soldering I've ever done. But then it never is. It never is. In fact, it probably is the cleanest soldering I've ever done. It's just my soldering is always a little bit unclean, a bit dirty. Looking nice. Looking nice. So now it says tighten the hex nuts, which again, until I've actually tested it, I'm not going to put the rest of the nuts on. That's just how I roll. Use a digital multimeter set to continuity to check if there are any shorts on the power rails and insert the daisy. Alright, well let's do that then. So this, we're talking about this here. Outer pins and inner pins. Between the outer pins and the inner pins. Okay. So I've got a thing here, put it on the beepy thing, like so, so it should beep if they are connected. And they've got outer pins there to inner pin, so outer pin to outer pin, that should be fine. Outer pin to outer pin, yeah. Outer pin to inner pin, no. 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 There you go, easy. I'm a bleeding expert. So now we have to add the daisy board, this fella here. To program the firmware, see the firmware updates. Okay, so can I plug it? I don't actually know whether the firmware is on it or not. What sort of connection do we need? One of those. Okay, if this is plugged in, can I still access? Yes, I can. So this just goes in and out. It's not secured in there. It's just going to be plugged in. So am I going to need to check the firmware? Yeah, possibly. Possibly I need to do that first. Let's have a look. So latest firmware. So, alright, sorry, what we'll do is we'll check it. We'll just check the daisy. How hard could that be? So it redirects you from the website, from the manual, directly to the Electrosmith site where you program your What's-It. I'm just plugging in a cable which will allow me to get to this, to plug in the right bit into this. It's just a micro USB into the side. So what does it say we should do? So using a micro cable, connect the daughter board to the back and then hold the boot and press the reset button. So it says connect it first. Is that the right way around, or is this the right way around? Oh my dear. Okay, that seems to be the right way around. Now I've got to see tiny writing on the daisy. Okay, I've got a light. Okay, boot and reset. So I've got to hold boot, press reset. Hold boot, press reset. Then go here. Oh, we're getting a thing. A thing's setting up on here. Windows says it's found a DF thing in what's it. That's always a good sign. So I go to the web programmer. And I go to, can you see that there? No, not necessarily, but hey, I go to connect. Wants to connect to an unknown device. That's my only choice at the moment. It should say DFU in FS mode. Okay, I've been here before. I've done a few programmings of daisies now, doing the old DFU in FS mode, and it's never straightforward on Windows. I don't know if it's a Windows thing. I don't know if you're on Apple it's a straightforward thing, but there's always hassle, I find, and the Venus manual does not suggest there's any or give you a way around it. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is just restart, because I've got a few updates that this Surface wants to do which could well be part of my problem. Whenever Windows Update has a thing it wants to do, that tends to knock out all sorts of bits and pieces. So I'm just going to restart and let it do what it is it needs to do. Okay, little bugger. I spoke to Venus. They say that, yeah, you probably do need to flash it, or it's maybe worth doing so. Now, I've had problems doing that with Windows, sadly, at least on this little fella, but this little computer here is a little bit under the weather, is not really working on all its cylinders anyway. So I plugged this in to my main computer, and then it's very, very straightforward. Now, on Windows, I have previously had trouble with this DFU business, but I think there's plenty of help out there on Google, and you get it to work through various processes of installing various drivers, etc., etc. If it doesn't just work for you, hopefully it will just work for you. Otherwise, as I say, there's plenty of help in order to get that to work. Because I plugged it in, it saw it, you connect via the Electrosmith page, you stick on the firmware, and it's done. So that should be all we need to do. All right. Back to the build guide. Insert the daisy, plug in the knobs. So, okay, so my way of testing is going to be absolutely to plug this in. So this can only go one way round. Test it before I put all the knobs and bits and pieces on. So it should go this way round, and it should just slot in there beautifully. Looks okay. Going to push it down. Ooh. Squeeze. Squeeze. Good. So nearly ready to go. Nearly ready to go. I'm going to plug it in and test it first, and then I'll put all the nice bits back on. Just once I've established that it's behaving as it should. That will make me feel better. Okay, I'm going to get some modular here, and we'll sort that out. Okay, first power on test. Let's give it a go. So I'm going to use a cable that I already know is working. It comes out of here. Can only go one way round inside. I'll plug that in there. And all we're trying to do at this point is just turn it on to see if there's anything bad happens. And we get a light on our daisy. Get some crazy lights on the front. That's looking really, really positive. Really positive at the moment. Excellent. Maybe we should run something through it to see whether we can get sound going through. So I've got a little thing here coming from here. So I take that, put it to an output, take that output from the Archon. I think I might have worked out what that is now. Plug it into here. Okay, I think I can safely say that it appears to be working to some degree or another. Now I need to spend a little bit of time with the manual, checking it out and working out what it can do. But I think now I can happily put those bits back in it and test it out a bit more properly. Right, test successful, I think. I'm now going to put all the rest of the bits on, so we're just going to finish that off and then we can sort of test it properly. So I need all the rest of the nuts onto the knobs. Now potentially you could screw these on and then use a pair of pliers to tighten them up. I tend to do things, you know, finger tight, because you never know if you have to take it apart. There may be a situation, and I also don't want to scratch the front plate. So getting a pair of pliers in there can sometimes have a disastrous effect. But you do also want everything to be nice and tight. Then there's all the nuts on the jack sockets. Always makes your fingers feel sort of weird and gummy after handling potentiometers. Good. Then there's the knobs. Ooh. Now these are just all push-on knobs. They've got the shape inside for the shape of the pot shaft. Goes in there, so they only go one way round. So it doesn't really matter in this occasion, but I just tend to put them all way round to one side so that they're all the same. So they can fit on nicely. They're very snug. If you want to remove them, one solution is to use a pair of teaspoons. That's nice. I've not heard that before. That's a good tip. So we are saying that these are on here, otherwise we're going to have to get the teaspoons out, and that's obviously going to be a tricky situation. Okay, those are all on there. Looking pretty smart. There you go. That is a completed Veno-Echo. Not a difficult build. Nice and straightforward. Lots of things to solder on there, but only in a big hardware knob and jack socket kind of way. All the business is being done by the daisy on the back, and that's probably the most troublesome bit, is trying to get that updated with the latest firmware. But hey, you persevere, you can get it done. It's easy on a Mac. It's usually easy on Windows, but sometimes you just have to do a little bit of fiddling about to get that to go. So yeah, seems to be working. I'm now going to dive into the manual a little bit just to see if I can work out exactly what it's all about. Get some fun sounds out of it. And then I think this could be a permanent residence. All right, on with the demo. I hope that was helpful. In the meantime, go and make some tunes.